Vive Enlighted los días 19, 20 y 21 de octubre de 2021. La conferencia sobre educación, tecnología e innovación, organizada por Fundación Telefónica. EA University y South Summit llega a su cuarta edición. Expertos mundiales responderán al reto de cómo lograr reducir las brechas educativas. Un evento global con un formato híbrido retransmitido en español, inglés y portugués. Desde 10 países en 4 platós. El auditorio del espacio Fundación Telefónica de Madrid. El auditorio de la Torre EA University de Madrid. El Teatro Vivo de Sao Paulo de Brasil. Y el estudio Movistar Televisión de Santiago de Chile. No te pierdas Enlighted Hybrid Edition 2021, donde podrás participar en mesas redondas, conversatorios y talleres. Y un año más, conoceremos los proyectos más inspiradores entre los triunfadores de los Enlighted Awards con más de 700 candidaturas internacionales. Inscripción gratuita en enlightED2021.
Muy buenas tardes, señor Ministro de Educación y Formación Profesional, autoridades, amigos todos que nos acompañáis hoy. Soy Carmen Morenés, Directora General de la Fundación Telefónica, y les doy hoy la bienvenida a este espacio de la Fundación Telefónica y al lanzamiento y apertura de nuestra cuarta edición de Enlighted Hybrid Edition 2021. Hoy, en nombre de todos nuestros socios, EA University, que quería dar la enhorabuena por la fantástica inauguración que hemos podido vivir esta mañana, South Summit y Fundación Telefónica, les doy la bienvenida a este ilusionante proyecto en el que nos embarcamos hace 4 años y que consideramos que es la conferencia mundial más importante en educación, tecnología e innovación. En primer lugar, os quiero dar las gracias a todos los que nos acompañáis hoy presencialmente en este auditorio y a todos los que nos seguís por streaming. En este momento tenemos seguidores desde toda España, desde Iberoamérica, desde México, pasando por nuestros hermanos de Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, Brasil, bienvenidos a todos los que nos seguís desde Brasil y muchos otros países del mundo. El streaming y la digitalización nos permite hoy tener en este momento a más de 110 países conectados a la conferencia Enlighted, lo cual realmente nos produce un enorme orgullo. Hoy, desde luego, estamos convencidos que, y más que nunca, que la educación y la formación es la palanca del progreso social. Y por eso iniciamos esta aventura, esta trepidante aventura, donde durante 3 días vamos a tener la oportunidad.
Amazing one for the 3 days that follow. We will be listening to experts from around the globe to share their knowledge, because knowledge gives us a lot. Going forward, to have Linda Lucas, who's here for her face-to-face from Helsinki, Wendy Coca, Del Soligan, Karen Brissetti, Harry Gardner, Wayne Holm, so many others who are going to be joining us for the next days. They will be discussing how we can bridge the education gap, which we all understand that is one of the most relevant going forward, looking at 3 main elements. Number 1, the innovation gap, then the knowledge gap, and of course the digital gap that allows access to quality, innovative education to a great many pupils. Today is a very special day. It's an honor and a privilege to have His Majesty, the King of Spain, who's joining us for this opening ceremony and who's is here. And I'd like to thank him for being here, the Ministry for Education and Vocational Training. And we have Rafael Nadal, who's undoubtedly the most reputed Spanish internationally, and José María Álvarez-Pallete, our president at Fundación Telefónica. Thank you for making time for this important debate. There are elements present in this world and will determine our future, because at Enlighted we've been grounded in the present but looking into the future. We want hence I would like to give the floor over to the Spanish Minister for Education and Vocational Training to begin the opening ceremony of this Enlighted Hybrid Edition 2021. Your Majesty, President of Telefónica, President of South Summit, President of the University authorities, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. If I may, I would like to address one and all those of you who are here face-to-face for the opening ceremony. And especially, I would like to thank, as Carmen was saying, those of you who are joining from over 110 countries. It's an opportunity for me to be here, a wonderful opportunity to be here. And I'd like to thank you for having me at this opening ceremony, especially because I was mentioning this with the President, that this is the most appropriate time to talk about education, technology, and innovation, because this is of the utmost importance now, and we're going to give voice to the most reputed international speakers. We need the talent, experience, and the good judgment that we can do with to head in the right direction this time of transformation and justified social unrest in some cases, as the Spanish Minister of Education and Training. We would like to say that all of us, all the institutions present in this field, have a huge responsibility
extraer lecciones aprendidas después de la pandemia de la COVID-19 o cómo va a ser ese futuro de la formación profesional. Desde luego son temas, son asuntos y, si me permiten, hasta preocupaciones permanentes para todos los que conformamos eso que llamamos la comunidad educativa en cualquier país. Es verdad que la educación, lo comentábamos también antes de entrar, es un asunto que genera siempre debate. Creo que es un tema que ha estado siempre en el centro del debate público. De hecho, hay una escritora muy admirada, Irene Vallejo, compañera también de mi tierra, que me decía que los propios debates educativos que a veces tenemos en la sociedad actual no son nuevos, pues ya hace unos 2.500 años que Sócrates en esa sociedad se establecían ya estos debates. Pero no es menos cierto que en este inicio ya del siglo XXI
it is indeed true that at this beginning of the 21st century, we're at a moment where scientific and technology knowledge have become the main social and economic driver across the globe.
Tantos conocimientos.
Never
Pero es verdad que son conocimientos crecientemente fragmentados.
Collected so much knowledge in history, but this knowledge is fragmented, is ever-changing, and is leading to hyper-specialization. So I would dare say that it is necessary to undertake a radical transformation, especially concerning what you learn, how you learn, but also what for? What is the purpose? The challenge that all education systems have ahead is to prepare next generations for this new emerging world, rather than that world that is ceasing to be, slowly but surely. The teaching and learning system focused on encyclopedia-like learning, just learning information by heart, is not enough given the current paradigm, because these days what is important is to apply knowledge and to face the need for new knowledge for a society and jobs like the ones we have now that are dynamic and changing. So we cannot simply repeat what we have studied. We need to put what we have learned into practice, give this meaning, being able to apply the knowledge that you acquired to solve specific problems. I am convinced that throughout these days we will be addressing the fascinating possibilities that the digital revolution is going to allow us to attain, a more personalized knowledge, a revolution to make the most of the creativity of our faculty members and teachers and students, a revolution that will allow us to overcome the barriers of distance and time, and indeed a revolution that bonds us, that connects us with all the knowledge and cultures of humanity. This is indisputable, but we also need to reflect on how we are going to manage all of this tsunami of information for the different individuals in society as a whole. The COVID-19 pandemic posed a challenge to all the educational systems in the world, and we were not prepared for this. And in Spain, we can be proud to say that the response of the education community, teachers, students, managers, families, was really commendable, successful, and exemplary because of the swiftness and efficacy with which we were able to continue to teach, being able to challenge fear and the bad auguries or omens of some. And there's been a huge effort undertaken by the community, the education community, with in the realms of companies, cultures, and other public services. The pandemic has shown us that digitalization is not only about having a good internet connection and many devices. We've seen that we need to increase the digital skills of both faculty members and students, and we need to change our teaching methodologies. These processes were already underway, but this pandemic has accelerated all this. So since the years 2020 and 2021, we are carrying out a huge effort through the resilience recovery funds to prepare our education centers or schools to meet the different challenges posed by the digital area. We're talking about 7.3 billion euros, and a significant part of these recovery funds are devoted to the digitalization plan and the increase in digital skills of the stakeholders in education systems. We need to adapt to the challenges and needs of this digital era. But the lesson we can take away is that nothing replaces face-to-face, at least in the first years of school. Nothing can replace the direct day-to-day contact among students and teachers and among pupils themselves, playing with the peers, learning to live in society and forge the first relations outside the families. There are numerous reports that alert that indeed face-to-face allowed to reduce any losses in learning, the impossibility to play outside and exercise outside was harmful for our students, and we've seen by and large that online training has also been helpful. I firmly believe that digitalization is contributing new and very valuable possibilities to achieve this horizon of an extended education inside and outside classrooms and throughout life, as per the knowledge society demands. We're talking about a more flexible education that will allow us to compensate for the constraints that schools have in rural areas, in places with low population density, which is a severe problem in Spain. For this process to decrease inequality in access to education, not the opposite, we know that digitalization, its extraordinary potential, does not spontaneously lead to a fairer and a better balanced society. We know that where we stand right now as regards digital adoption, the lack of equity is heightened in the education system. Students and families who don't have the same skills nor technical resources to really make the most of online education. And I will also underline that public administrations have the responsibility to accelerate the digital adoption. But we should not turn our backs to the evidence that social changes are happening that require time, that allow for no shortcuts. And in the meantime, we cannot leave anyone behind. I am an optimist. I'm also from Aragon. I don't know what's more important in that sense, of being from Aragon or optimistic, but innovation and technology are giving us a wonderful opportunity, and it will be more so in the future. We have fabulous tools so that any child around the world will have access to an endless universe of information and knowledge so that they can dream their own future. All education systems are changing in this direction. We're advancing towards a model to develop skills and competencies so that our children learn, to create, to work as a team, to understand and apply acquired knowledge, to have a critical judgment, and above all, to be responsible and generous citizens. It is understandable that all of these changes that the digital era bring about may generate some doubts and concern, but when these doubts give us unrest, we need to remember what Andreas Lecha, the PISA report says, education is about preparing students for their future, not for our past. So this is the road that we are going down in Spain, and we should do this with trusting our education system. Also, when our country recovered democracy, and as well as the developed world, we've been contributing to the economic, social, and cultural development of our country. So we must be certain that given this wonderful challenge of digital transformation, we will live up to the expectations. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister, for sharing these thoughts with us. It is my pleasure to ask José María Álvarez-Pallete, Chairman of Telefónica, and Rafael Nadal, one of the best tennis players in Prince of Asturias Award for sports, to join me on stage, and Eva Fernández, who's Global Communications Director of Telefónica, who will be chairing the following debate. Thank you. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure for me to welcome one and all here, and those joining, as Carmen and the Minister have mentioned, online. So welcome to this new Enlighted edition, the World Conference on Innovation, Technology and Education. It's a true pleasure to have the President of Telefónica, my President, our Chairman, José María Álvarez-Pallete, and our wonderful ambassador in the world, Rafael Nadal. I think neither of them need an introduction, so let me go straight where we have an entrepreneur who's a very good sportsman. We have a wonderful athlete who's a great businessman. So we see the importance of educating mind and body. I think this is a good example of multiple intelligence, and above all, we are talking about two great people. In order to become great professionals, is it always necessary to be a good person? José María, let's start with you. Well, Your Majesty, Minister, authorities, friends, it's a pleasure for me to be here. I'd like to thank South Summit and the Instituto Empresa for being here with us. What we all look for since we're children would be examples. We look up to our parents, teachers, our friends, and then with time we do likewise at our jobs, and we are looking at professionality. We're looking for knowledge, and we're also looking at behaviors. It's easier to admire somebody where you not only recognize talent, but capacities and a special way of being, and that's what we're looking for. We want to be inspired in those who teach us. Apart from learning specific skills, it's important for us to see what is being done by others and how. So in this sense, values are important. To working around values is very important. This makes us better, and I think I'm one of the most envied people in Spain right now because I'm sitting here next to Rafa, who's a wonderful example. Well, good afternoon, Your Majesty, Minister, rest of authorities, and colleagues here. It is an honor to be here. Thank you very much for having me. And as for your question about whether it is indispensable to be a good person to attain your goals or be an excellent professional, my answer would be no, it's not indispensable to be a good person, to be a great professional. Notwithstanding this, if you're a good person, I believe that things will be easier for you if you are able to be surrounded by people who help you to be better in all senses, professionally and personally. I have no doubt in my mind you'll have better odds of successing. In my personal case, throughout my life, I've had the right people around me. I've been very lucky to be around people who've helped me out. I've had the support of my family. My bond with them has been necessary to grow in the different aspects of life. And I am slightly a typical person in the world of sports, insofar as I have the same team ever since I've had one. And the fact that that is true comes to show that there is a relationship of trust that helps them tell me things up front without having to worry about keeping their jobs. So I think that this is one of the best decisions I've ever taken, to have the right people around me, people who have the ability to speak their minds without having to find the way to tell me what they really felt. I've allowed them to help me, and it's important to judge what you do. When you do things wrong, you need to recognize this and not try to blame others or find excuses in other people. And this is what has always been instilled in me. I've never wanted to be a role model. I've just tried to go down my own path. And if with what I do, I become a good example for others, well, that's fantastic for others who want to see this as an example. And those who think I'm not doing well, well, I'm sure that it's good for them to be free to decide who to look at.
So they feel lucky to be next to each other, and so do I. We have an audience of hundreds of thousands of people, and I'm sure many are starting their professional careers, establishing their priorities. What would you tell those who are thinking that it's very easy to talk about values, ethics, as you made it to the top, but who think that to make it to the top, they need to elbow their way through to the top? Well, I would say they are wrong. I don't think you need to elbow your way through to the top. I think it's easier to open the way by bringing people together and, well, getting with the right people always around you. And as I said before, 5-6 years ago, we opened the Rafa Nadal Academy together with Movistar with the aim to educate and train people. So we have young players from 12 years of age until 18 years of age. That's an essential stage in the lifetime. And above all, I always say the same to everyone who is part of, who comes to our academy. We are a crucial part as we have an impact on the education of every child coming to our academy for 1 year, 5 years, or just a week. At the end of the day, parents entrust us with their children, and that's a huge responsibility. Some of them, they have the dream to become a professional tennis player. Others just want to improve and to maybe get the opportunity to play in the US universities. And my only tip is that we work hard so that we make them better people. We make an effort so that we provide them with all the tools they might need in their future. But above all, to help them grow in values. Values that will help them to make the right decisions, whatever they decide to do in the future, be it in sports, the university, the job market. So we always try that they leave our academy being better people. José María? Well, what I would tell those who think that the thing about values is a bit of a luxury is that life has plenty of situations where nothing is written and set in stone. You need to find your own way. So we just ate humble pie. With this pandemic, we took our quality of life and the travel for granted, and then we were confronted with a situation we were not prepared for. From Telefónica, we can say that we didn't have any guidelines to behave, to find your way through a pandemic. So at the end of the day, you need to resort to something, and we resorted to values. We have a public service vocation, and we wanted to have a more human world by connecting people, and that's what we do. Very often in life, you find yourself in situations where there is no guidebook that you can follow, there's no master and no reference, and in our case, it's really important that we have these guiding values to know how we should behave in these situations. And these values could be quality of service, the will to service people, also companionship, solidarity. Also, we've seen this with the volcano eruption in La Palma, in the Canary Islands. And there are situations you haven't been trained and prepared for. And that's when you need to resort to values. Our history dates back 97 years, but there's no style guide for a pandemic. And nevertheless, we managed, we're not only not a problem, but rather a solution. We didn't need to tell all 10,000 employees in Telefónica what they had to do. It came from them. So I think values are helpful, and they help to live better and to live differently. So talking about pandemics, we just lived a time where life was on hold, apparently, and life was taken on screen and on the social media. So the question would be, what would have you done if overnight, where you were students, you were sent home and told to follow the university course, the school course, on the screen, online? Well, I'm a bit older than Rafa here, So it would have been entirely different back in the day. It was all about the blackboard, where we would use chalk, and it would have been very different if you compare this pandemic to the previous one, the so-called Spanish flu in 1919. The world life grounded to a halt, and here every single lockdown week was very disruptive. There were no two different lives, the on-site and the online one. Actually, the network, the internet was never thought for 100% of population to be at home, doing telework, buying, learning, but nevertheless, it worked. What I'm trying to say is that the pandemic has changed many things, and this includes education. It has also changed the way we work. We realized that we can telework. Well, for example, in Telefónica, we sent 10,000 employees on a Friday back to the homes to work starting on Monday. So life will never be the same again. And this same principle applies to education. So I think that technology has always been good, but it's especially good when we place people at the center. This is not a world for machines, but for people. And we need to remember this. Some things can be digitized: empathy, companionship, what you learn in the playgrounds, at school. And this can be down to algorithms. So this is an exciting world where we will have all the technology at our hand, but we can't allow technology to dictate change. Also, I had teachers with blackboards and chalk, I must say. But anyway, like José María, even though I'm slightly younger, if when I was 15 I was sent back home and told to go online in an entirely different manner, well, probably would have been impossible. I think, well, it would be impossible for me at the moment, but truth be told, we've been living together with technology for quite a while, and I think that youngsters, teachers, somehow, well, they are more familiarized with technology, but I admit that they all made a huge effort, very commendable, and I would like to thank them all, because in a way, they ensured that the education world continued. And thanks to Telefónica, they were able to stay connected through the media, through the screen. They were able to follow their studies. And back in the day, when I had to study and also to play sports, it was more complicated. I remember having to stop competing at many tournaments because I had to get the grades. So that was my reality. And I had to go going hands and forth to ensure that I could do both things at the same time. It was much more difficult, I should say, than nowadays. Young people now, if they try to become professional players, they can travel to any tournament and then online with their connection, with the curriculum, with the teachers, they can continue with their studies, and that's essential for them to be able to keep up their sporting dreams without giving up education, which is of the essence, in my opinion. I think is the mainstay of a prosperous society, the society of well-being. And back in the day, I think things were made entirely different, with a great deal of effort. Also today, is a huge effort for youngsters nowadays. But I think thanks to technology, everything is slightly easier. When you're in the other corner of the world, you can access, you can see your friends, your family on a screen, and you are connected with them at any given moment. Well, that makes life more comfortable, easier, especially to make the right decisions, as you always have at your disposal the people that you need. Also, the minister talked about the importance of the education models and laying bare that the post-pandemic age has changed everything. Everything has sped up, including obviously technology, which has shaped the way we learn. Our education and now is different and continues. And Rafa, as this big sporting figure that you are, and also as a businessman, which responsibility do you bear when you need to pass on the new generations that it is essential to constantly learn, and there are no timeouts when it comes to learning? Well, I think in this world we have time for everything. At the end of the day, if you are organized, you can have fun, you can learn, you can do anything, but then you need to set your priorities. When you have clear goals in your life, well, sometimes you need to prioritize obligations over leisure, and sometimes it's hard to accept it. But in my case, when people tell me, look, I'm sure you made a huge sacrifice in your life when you were young to be able to reach the top. And I say, well, they were not big sacrifices for me, as that is what I wanted to do. So when you are doing what you like to do, what motivates you, what drives you, well, you do it with determination, with excitement. And what for other people seems a huge sacrifice, well, it never was for me. So in that sense, I repeat, I think it's easy to be said, but I think that's the reality. Each one needs to find their own path, to follow their dreams, and to find their own and personal vocation. Because when you do, then finding professional success stops being a sacrifice, as you are doing something that really excites you, and you work in that with passion without looking at the clock. So I truly believe that, well, I've made huge efforts throughout my life, but also I found moments to live. I don't think that to be able to become an excellent professional, you need to stop living, enjoying life. So I think one of the things I am the most proud of is that in any stage of my life, I lived fully that stage. Well, it's true that when my friends were out on Saturdays, probably every other Saturday I was staying home. But the main point is that we need to set priorities. So being able to listen to others, listen to those who are older than you are, those around you, helps you a great deal to make the right decisions. So I think it's true that technology helps us, but having everything at the tip of your fingers sometimes makes us lose or makes us believe that we know everything. And by experience, many people, well, for different reasons, don't get the right help, and I think you should be able to listen to others and be helped by others.
There's not much I can add. If we carried out a survey here, we've done this in some of the countries where we work with, and we asked everybody here or joining online what they do every day, how many hours they devote to sleeping, to be informed, to travel, to entertain themselves. And what we've seen is that people devote 31 hours to do things. This means that we do more than one thing at a time. We're multi-platform. We place less attention on the things that we do, and there's a risk because we are less able to focus. There's so many stimuli around that it's increasingly difficult to concentrate on things, and in order to attain your passions, it's important to focus. And normally things are so intense. This happens at work and during my free time. I want to do so many things that oftentimes I don't find the time to do all of them. So what I have found useful, and this is what I learned from Rafa's words, is it's important to find little shelters where you take a little time off. This would be my parents, my friends from my boarding school, my family, my wife, my children. So it's important to find some shelter, find this place where you can focus, not only to learn, but to enjoy what you do for quality time. Did you also go out one in every 4 weekends? No, I think I would go out a bit more, especially at the boarding school. But then I focused and yes, I didn't go out as much. Okay, some years ago, we were very lucky because Rafael Nadal was present at the opening ceremony of 42 Madrid. This is the programming campus at Fundación Telefónica in Spain, and over a short period of time, it's become a global reference as an innovation center competing with the largest players. There are some students at 42 here. There's no teachers, classrooms, books. I was going to say there are no students, but they're not really students. They're problem solvers. They learn by talking to each other, and if you listen to them, what you hear are words like collaboration, innovation, overcoming difficulties, tolerance to frustration. What happened for words like collaboration and creation? And also, like, for example, overcoming or improvement have become so important. Well, I can tell you about 42, and then Rafa can tell us more because he was also there at 42 at 42, which is an example of how technology is a revolution in the realm of education, because at 42 there are no faculty members or classrooms or books, an official degree. But when we launched the first call, 300 places. At 42, there were 18,000 people who tried to enroll, but the 42, based on AI, identifies the need of the job market, in this case programming, and analyzes ongoingly. So it's a corpus of knowledge that constantly is updated, and whereby students build their own path. There are 7 common levels, but then you create your road towards cyber safety and security, deep learning, multi-platforms. So you correct your peers and are corrected by them, and there's not one way to learn. So you learn depending on how others advance. There are people aged 18 to 72, so you don't have to have previous programming knowledge, and there's no unemployment among them. They all came from France. There are 20-some academies like that, and it's important because you could learn many other things, not only program. It's what you really learn is a way of learning. You learn to learn, and this brings me back to values. If you don't know something, you get help from your peers. You need to also devote time to correcting your peers. You learn to deal with frustration. It's a great thing to go there and talk to your students because they tell you best, but many have not worked with a Mac computer that can't even use a Macintosh, and this becomes frustrating at first, but this shows you some values, some skills beyond programming that prove extremely useful. I think it's a new path, a new avenue. I don't know whether education is going to go down this path, but it's a new avenue in this new world. So it's really a lot of fun to talk to them, to be there, and it's opened my eyes how technology is disruptive in this world that was very traditional and a bit backward sometimes with education. I remember when Rafa came to visit to the headquarters in 42, is a different place. So we had to go across park, and the 13,000 people in Telefónica were outdoors because they wanted to see Rafa. So when I go for a walk, nobody turns their head, but when you walk with Rafa, well, they should really pay more attention to when you're around, you being their bosses. But it was a very special day. I remember the welcoming moment by this company, Telefónica. It was very, I have great memories, and 42 was simply unbelievable. It's a project that I knew nothing about before the time, but I thought it was extremely interesting in many senses. I'm not technology savvy. I would improve if I studied there, but thanks to my peers, because it's a way of understanding education and training. It's completely different. People with no previous knowledge can start there and learn slowly but surely how, by helping out your peers and letting your peers help you. It's a project, as Maria has mentioned, that involves many values that prove decisive when it comes to advancing, when it comes to learning and understanding the future ahead. And as José María very rightly said, these days machines are part of our daily life. We have to coexist with them and have a decisive impact on our lives, but the human factor cannot be lost either. So the human factor is fundamental, even though you work with the machine. So teamwork, working with buddies, tolerance to frustration, having people there by your side, and being able to ask this person or that person. It's different way of life almost, and people slept there, if I'm not mistaken, because it's open 24/7. I was simply taken aback. I have wonderful memories of 42, of 42. I hope I can be back, and I would love to spend time with them because it's very interesting. Some people were saying, yeah, please, yes, come and visit again. Okay, so 42. Now we're going to send the ball with a spin to Rafael Nadal and talk about the Rafael Nadal Academy by Movistar. If you go online, you check their website, says work hard, have fun, and make it. Should we tell ourselves again and again that perseverance and overcoming situations are necessary in life? Well, I think it's always worth it. I don't know whether we need to repeat this again and again, or just need to do it and feel it yourself. Although it is indeed true, when you repeat things again and again, you end up believing them, right? But I think effort is always worthwhile in life, despite of whether you reach your goals or not, because effort and dedication, being humble, will always take you to something that is very important, which is to advance. How far? Well, it sounds very nice. You hear people that only with effort and dedication you'll make it. You need also innate skills for certain things, and there are human limits. I have my limits in sports that have allowed me to get very far, but in other aspects of my life, my skills are way lower. So there has to be some innate skills, but effort is always worthwhile. Why? Because there is no greater personal satisfaction than going home doing you've done all you could to reach your goals. And when that happens, beyond whether you really attained the ultimate main goal that you had set out to, is important. But even if you don't reach it, at least you know you tried, that you gave it your very all, and go back with this personal satisfaction of having done everything in your power to make it. At the Academy, what we do is to really work hard every day, all those involved in training, so that the kids, the children, get this message that when they study, they need to give it their very all, that when they play, that they give it their very all, but that they need to have fun too. So this is not just a place to almost train little soldiers, and that it's only about work. You need to learn to make the right decisions and know when it's time for one thing and when it's time for something else. And this is just the result of working hard. For those of us who train young people, I'm not quite there yet. I'm still trying to learn. This is how things are. I train every day with the excitement of learning. This is what I did this morning and what I'll do tomorrow morning when I go back to training, because I don't understand life any other way. Training or working just because, without the ultimate goal of being better, even if you don't manage to get better at it, doesn't make sense. It's boring. And I think that it is important to go to work or to go train every day with the goal of improving something. And this helps you to be alert, active, and to me, it's vital in any realm of life. Without goals, things are way more difficult. Okay, José María? Well, I cannot agree more. I would like to tell you an experience when we opened the Academy with Rafa. And I think that perseverance means trying to go the extra mile every day and have the conviction that you've tried to be better, to do something different, to do something that makes you a bit better professionally or intellectually, or in your emotional life, also as regards affection. So perseverance is a daily challenge, and a company like ours with 97 years of history, which is large, changing it, having the feeling that your time at Telefónica is helping the company change and be prepared for the next 40, 50 years is trying to make people understand at Telefónica that what they do it should not be business as usual, that we're changing things. So persevering makes you better, a better person, and it makes you a better organization. If you look at history, and sorry, I talk about my company a lot, but it's just because I'm very proud of this company. So we're talking about Telefónica, and in 7 years of history, and it shouldn't be where it stands because it competes with the monsters, huge companies that are present globally, and we're there. Why? Because of the way we've always done things at Telefónica, with ambition to take the company farther. And this is perseverance. Doesn't mean that you're always going to win, but it does mean that you go home with this feeling that you really gave it a shot and that you always tried to go the extra mile. And I have this little story. When we opened the Academy, Rafa invited me to come with, and Roger Federer was there, and I had never well, it's a real treat to be with Rafa. It's a luxury to be with him. But I saw how they talked to each other, Roger and Rafa. They're the two, I was going to say probably, but they're the two very best tennis players in history. But Roger, he took the floor and he said that he became a real champion when he played Rafa, because he never goes out there to play but to win. So you have to give your very all to play against Rafa, and this is something that we need to aspire to. Well, what's wonderful, and we're all of us who work with Telefónica are proud of the company we work for. So this is Enlighted, a global conference on technology, innovation, education. We've talked about all of this, but in this edition, we're trying to focus on bridging the digital gap. You travel the world and are first-hand witness of what is happening. Do you think that we're doing things right? Are we making a better world as a society? Rafa, if you want, I can start. Oh, please be my guest. Okay, well, we need to be aware that insofar as living human beings as a generation, we are privileged because we have never had so much technology over such a short period of time like now. So this is like fourfold the Industrial Revolution, and this is happening very, very quickly. This means that, because we were talking about being able to assimilate knowledge and focus, but there's yet another challenge, and that is that when there's been an accumulation of technology in history, everything has changed. Politics, economy, society, the social order, and not in a peaceful way, because there's always asymmetry. Some people see this, other people don't. And this is a data-based revolution, so it's a bit abstract. It's difficult to really see, and there is an inequality of opportunities from the get-go. So we need to understand equal opportunities as a social contract. So the challenge is to allow technology to reach everybody as well as possible, or else having the time to see how we do that. We need a new social contract. This happened with the Industrial Revolution, and we're living similar times because AI will destroy millions of jobs, but will create millions of jobs too. So this needs to be intertwined with education, primary, secondary, higher education, vocational training, training at work. We need to be able to allow for people at work to continue training permanently. So it's a true revolution, and it's a time where technology plays a very important role. Technology is going to solve problems that were thought unsolvable, diseases that we thought would have no cure for, and climate change will be addressed thanks to technology. But we need equality, or else society won't be sustainable as we know it. Rafa? Well, I think Jose Maria is better informed than me, and everything he's said is extremely valuable. Whether we're doing things right or not, I don't have the judgment to know. This is the reality. Let's trust that indeed each and every one of us can do their bit so that access to technology becomes extended for all. At my foundation, during the times of the pandemic, we've been working on different projects, but we normally work with children, boys and girls, which are socially vulnerable. So apart from tending to these children and looking out for them during these months of pandemic, we couldn't have them there face-to-face at our facilities. Well, we tried to see that those who had to be trained had access to technology so that they could follow what the trainers, what the teachers had to teach. So this requires that we all do our part, that everybody has more opportunities across the board. And apparently the world is advancing in this direction. We can only hope that this will become a reality, that what we're doing proves good, and that our future is brighter, because it will determine the general well-being. Well, we still have some time, and if I may, I would like to open the floor in case we have interesting questions for our guests over there.
¿Se me escucha bien? Esta pregunta es para Rafa.
Can you hear me? This is a question for Rafa. Hi, Rafa. What drives you to devote time, energy, and money to work with social projects in the Rafa Nadal Foundation? And yes, this is the 10th anniversary of the Rafa Nadal's Foundation. Well, the question is what drove me? Well, a very basic reason beyond talking about what we do at the foundation, which is something that we can mention later. What made the decision of creating the foundation and devoting our time to children in vulnerable situations is that I always felt very lucky. Lucky for life, the way life has treated me. I've been lucky enough to be born when I was born, and that life smiled on me for many years on many aspects. So in that sense, I think I wanted to give back. It was only fair that I did. And I know that with what we do at the foundation, we are helping about 900 families. Well, it's not decisive if we see the world context, but in a way, well, it's crucial for those children, that's for sure. But from a world's perspective, it's a small impact. But if that has an impact on other people, well, I think people who are lucky, like I am, where life smiles on us, well, we must be role models for society. And in that sense, I think, few things makes you happier than helping others. Being generous is a very important value in this world, and we can't but support each other. And what we try to do is to try and make it not just dependent on luck for those. That it doesn't depend to chance. That it only depends on chance for those children, and also to instill values in them so that they can also have a space where they can share positive things, and that the things that are happening outside of school were mostly negative. So we bring them the chance to have a hopeful future, and we do that through sports and education, which are two transforming tools and essential for these children to have an entirely different opportunity than they would have had if they hadn't accessed this. And we have success cases that are positive reinforcement for us, And we look forward to widen our center, our space, as the one we're opening in Madrid again, and inching forward.
Hola, buenas tardes. Pregunta para José María.
For José María, in this ever-changing world that we live in, what do we prioritize, AI or emotional intelligence? Oh, there you are. Well, to start with, I don't think it is one or the other. I think the AI without emotional intelligence won't work. We've never had so much technology, but if we leave it down to algorithms like the learned independently, they will have the biases of the databases they were created from. We're talking about gender biases, for example. So we need to include the human factor to what we do, in what we do, rather. So, well, technology we will have as much as we want to, and these technologies feed back on each other. For example, we have AI, 5G, fiber optics, cybersecurity, quantum computing, so the 3D printing, many things, and they feed back on each other. And the Moore law is actually happening exponentially, and we are not programmed, we are not brainwired to be in exponential growth. We think in a linear way. So the issue with this is that we need to add a human component to it. Is it time for social sciences? We need digital sociologists, digital anthropologists, digital lawyers, digital doctors. So it must be the person who determines what happens and not the machine what can happen. What we see on our media is that very often it's difficult to get across. The data traffic increases 50% every year. Imagine making 50% more cars every year, but the data traffic is mostly non-human, is computers talking to each other, and many of them, a huge percentage is about evil bots. So we need a social covenant. So I don't know if we're talking about emotional intelligence, but we're talking about empathy, solidarity. This would be the new social covenant. And I attach a great deal of value to social sciences. I think reading about social sciences would be very useful. And I'm deeply concerned with this, to be honest. I don't know if there are any further questions. Majesty, please. Well, thank you very much. Firstly, congratulations. It's a pleasure to listen to you all from your different perspectives and these inspiring forces that you are, and that is why you're there, and that's why we are listening to you. But since we are talking about innovation, education, talent, and there are so many elements at stake, as you've explained before, well, in your life, you are very successful in different areas, and at the same time, you want to give back to society, and you are doing that. So the question is about how, in your aspect, as well, in this idea of giving back, how do you integrate innovation? Is it a tool to improve many things, but also you integrate it for your own organizations, so that later on, for example, at an academy, you give back to society and educate people better? So how do you integrate innovation and you detect talent, so that you can permeate and help them reach their full potential, detecting talent, as Rafa said, and then provide them with the skill set so that they reach the full potential. I know it's a very broad question, but, well, feel free to answer as you wish. Thank you. Rafa? Well, thank you very much, Your Majesty. I think the world has changed. Technology has changed basically everything, the rules of the game in all meanings, and also in the world of sports. I didn't grow up with technology, and I'm using technology just for information purposes. I don't use technology on a daily basis as a tool to prepare for my games, for example. If I use it, it's for stats, to be able to read better my opponents, to analyze my opponents, and that is something that wasn't possible when I was 16. But now, you just log on to the to the websites and you find information about your opponents, but the rules of the games have changed, and that's how we understand it in our academy. And our players are growing up with technology, so what we try to do is, without losing the human touch, which is essential for me, when you lose it, you take a step back. But for our players, I think you need to convince them by showing them data. So when I was practicing training, I was very obedient, I must say. And well, they told me, this is wrong, you need to make it right. And I made it right. I would make it right. But today, through videos, well, the young players, well, they are recorded when they practice, when they do it wrong. Well, they are shown their mistakes later on, and then they understand why, and they have nutritionists then, well, checking how much they weigh before and after practice, so that they analyze how much liquid they need at any given point for full performance. And also there is plenty of research for physiotherapy, physical conditioning. And at the end of the day, these are all based on technology platforms, feeding all these data into these platforms, where, well, this is being leveraged by teachers, by trainers, so that they can reach, each player can reach the full potential. And then we try to find perfection in any aspect they need to work on. And all that, well, without passion, without effort, without determination, without the right people by you, is empty. But it's true that today we use technology in a decisive way. Otherwise, it would be going backwards in a way. So, well, all questions are difficult to answer, but especially when they come from Your Majesty. I think the responsibility we have is that talent has the best innovation to be able to progress, and in that sense, we think that the opportunity we have in this technological revolution is that talent flourishes, but flourishes in an environment of values. I'm saying this because this is the first technological revolution that where we find ourselves in an avant-garde situation. In previous revolutions, like the Industrial Revolution, we were lagging behind, and here we have more fiber optics deployed in Spain that, if we add together the UK, France and Italy. And therefore, with the last generation routers we have a steam machine in 80% of the Spanish territory. So we want to take it to 100%, and to achieve that, and having a highly skilled and educated generation and a fully functional educational system, we need to provide others with the best platforms, and we do that from Telefónica. And now we have our headquarters with 140,000 square meters is becoming the biggest technology hub in Europe. We're talking about AI, 5G, fiber optics, deep learning, but also edge computing, cybersecurity. cloud computing, the IoT. We already have that, and on that basis, we are kickstarting hundreds of projects. We're talking about drones, connected vehicles, hybrid models. So our responsibility is that in the next 4 years, this technological hub will provide more than 100,000 people the opportunity to grow, to educate, to learn. And as Rafa does in their academy, well, he helps people so that their talent flourishes. But in our case, we have the responsibility of having one of the most important hubs in Europe. And that's what we try to do in all the countries we are in, that the talent has the needed innovation that it needs to create things. And well, with these excellent closing remarks and the closing question from His Majesty, we would like to thank you all. It's been a huge pleasure having you all here. And well, we close this first session of Enlighted 2021. Thank you very much.
Gracias.